Brief video, I want to go over two aspects of case law research that we've touched on, but I want to make sure we have perfectly clear in advance of the research memo. That is going to be using Headnotes and using KeyCite and other citator services to find other case law that's on point and other resources that are on point. But before we do that, I want to give a brief overview as to our legal research class. The last few weeks we've done an overview of legal research strategies, and we've practiced using the main legal research skills. But it's important to know that this is just a beginning. I encourage you to continue to develop your legal research skills in advanced legal research, California legal research, or international legal research classes further in your law school careers. And you can also just continue to self-educate through using research guides and through exploring different resources. So that's part one. This is a good basic course, but don't think that this is the end-all and be-all of legal research. As for the order of this class, this week and next week are the last pieces of the legal research puzzle. So from this point forward, you'll be wandering through the fields of legal research on your own reconnaissance, and you're going to be putting all the steps together. I wanted to go over briefly the main steps of legal research, just to make sure we're all clear on those. The first step is to find a relevant legal secondary source on your topic. Ideally, it's going to be a jurisdiction-specific and subject-specific secondary source. Research guides online can help you find that, whether you're in California or if you're in another jurisdiction. You're going to browse the secondary source to orient yourself, and then you're going to get citations from the secondary source to primary law. Once you find a primary resource that's helpful for you, you can branch out. And there's two main ways to do this that we're going to discuss today. One, you can use a citator, such as KeyCite, Shepherd's, or BCite. Then it will get you all the resources that have cited to your exact case. You can also limit it to resources that have cited your case for a particular point of law. So you should always use this before you cite a case, but you should know that you can also use citators to make sure that a case is still good law. And you can also use citators to make sure that statutes are still good law as you explore this week. One other note, you can also use headnotes and key numbers to expand out and to find other cases that discuss similar points of law. But you should be aware of the difference between headnotes and key numbers and then finding other relevant resources through KeyCite, Shepherd's, or BCite. Headnotes get you resources that cited to the same legal resource, generally, not just resources that cited to your case. So KeyCite, Shepherd's, BCite will only give you ones that have cited to your exact case, but you'll probably also going to want to check out the headnotes and key numbers to make sure that you're hitting all the bases and finding every resource, because there might be something relevant that just hasn't cited to the particular case that you've located. Once you have found a number of relevant resources using those two techniques to branch out, you're going to cross-reference between the case law, statutory law, and applicable regulations. And once you have a good set of case law, statutes, and regulations, you might have spent hours compiling these all. Is your job done? No. Remember that you're always going to want to use a citator service as your last step to make sure whatever you're citing to is still good law. And there's a general overview that we're going to be talking about today of using citator services. There's also a guide, a sort of short guide that I wrote about this that is available under the course materials tab on the Twin page. So feel free to consult that as we move forward. There's a few essential parts here about citator services. You're going to notice that they have these different symbols, and you'll end up using the cases based on those symbols. Generally, there's some similarities between the three platforms. If there's a red thing, a red flag, a red stop sign, don't use it. It's used occasionally in practice. Don't use it for the memos. Don't use it for any of the legal research and writing tasks that you have to do. Just steer clear of the reds because it means it's been overturned on at least one point of law. Then there's symbols that say H or C, or they show that there's been citations to it, but it's pretty neutral. Those are okay to use. It just shows that there has been some citing references, or alternatively that no other case has cited to it yet. Those will mostly show up on cases that are new. But as we've discussed before, the vast majority of cases you'll find on Westlaw, Lexis, and Bloomberg will be marked by a yellow symbol, either a yellow flag or just a yellow triangle. And with these every single case you see that's yellow, you're going to have to use your own judgment to decide whether or not it's going to work for you. Here's a few factors you can use to apply to this decision. If the case has a yellow symbol, it means that might have been discussed disparagingly by another court. So you can use the standards that we've already established to see how worthwhile that other court's opinion is to you. So if you're looking at California Supreme Court and a court in Kentucky disparages its ruling, well, it doesn't mean as much. You could probably go right on ahead and use that case. However, if the case comes from that criticizes your case comes from a court within your same state or is of a higher level court, and it criticized the holding of your case, that's more important. So you're going to want to read over what they say, see how they describe it, and see if it impedes the effectiveness of your case at all. You're going to see sometimes it'll say distinguished by. When it says distinguished, you're always going to want to go through and double check, see if the way in which they've distinguished the case is similar or unlike the facts of your case. So when it says distinguished, it really does mean that you're going to have to go through and read the cases that distinguish it to see if it applies to your case or not. Those are the three factors you're going to want to use with cases marked yellow. You're going to want to see what level court it came from. You're going to want to see if it's distinguished or not. And then you're going to want to see if it criticized the holding or if it just mentioned your case in passing. Generally, you'll see that the editors at Westlaw, Lexis, and Bloomberg are very effusive in passing out yellows. It's sort of the majority of cases will be marked with a yellow. So that's enough on citators. If you have follow-up questions, check with Professor Brain, check with me, and check out the citator handout available on the Twin page. I also want to talk briefly about the techniques you use to find other relevant cases. If you found a relevant case, for instance, let's say this case from the Texas Supreme Court is super relevant for a point of law that you're interested in, and you want to be able to locate other cases on the similar issues. You can do that, thankfully, through Westlaw, Lexis, and Bloomberg. This is how you do it. First, you're going to want to note that there's a difference between headnote numbers. These are the ones to the left of the headnote. You'll know the headnote number because it starts at number 1. The headnote numbers just pertain to the case itself. They're great because you can use them to navigate into the case by clicking on the headnote number, and then within the text you can also click on the headnote to get back up to the top. The more important thing for our purposes are the key numbers. The key numbers, as we've discussed before, stand for a general point of law, and they're assigned to many cases. So if you're interested in a point of law, scroll down, figure out which key number is most applicable, and then generally you're going to want to click on the most specific one. So the one that has on Westlaw, the largest number of characters. So in this case, it's about a restaurant family who were tricked into a lease by a large leasing company who misrepresented the state of the property. Specifically, they entered a long-term lease with a property that had a horrible, horrible smell, which you can imagine is detrimental to a restaurant. So if you have a factually similar situation, you can either argue the facts or you can argue the law. You can say that somebody shouldn't be tricked into something by somebody who actively concealed material information. So you'll scroll through the headnotes and you'll see which headnote applies directly to this issue. So if you want to read where it discusses the point of law, click on the headnote. Those are the numbers on the top that go from start at 1 and work their way down. But if you want to find other cases on this issue, click on the key number. And remember, from there you can change jurisdictions or alter dates. Then we have the same system on Lexis, except that it doesn't have the key number. It has this different system where you can say more like this headnote. Once you can say more like this headnote, it'll bring up different cases that also discuss that same legal issue. So I hope this clarifies those two techniques. You're going to need to apply those two techniques in the weeks to come, and hopefully in the research memo as well if you find relevant cases. If you have any questions about these two techniques, send me an email. I know it's tough because typically we'd be able to address them in person. So I'll be available through this week to answer your questions via email. And let me know if there's anything that is confusing or doesn't make sense, or if you need to beef up on this one particular strategy. One other thing, on Westlaw, when you are doing key cite, you're going to always want to click on citing references and then limit key cite display if you want to see a certain type of resource within the Citator service. On Shepard's, what you're going to do is to first click on the symbol to get into Shepard's, and then you're going to click on Focus Restrict By. It's up top, and that's the way that you can limit to the type of resource that's cited to your particular case.